Indeed, this panel will be looking at really how organizations or how businesses in the aviation industry and in the broader travel space can engage the youth in the industry. And Africa is, of course, it has one of the youngest populations in the world. I think the average age at the moment is around 19 years old, which is staggering, and it's getting even younger. It obviously presents a unique challenge because even though Africa's youth has the potential to transform Africa, if neglected, they could obviously worsen poverty and inequality, while obviously strengthening peace and security and prosperity across the continent. So what we are going to do in this session really is talk about some of the challenges youth is experiencing at the moment, and we will be talking about really how to overcome these challenges and how to really spend your time cleverly, and what pockets of the industry might be doing better than others. And that's where the jobs of the future are going to be. Would be really good to just get an overview of your backgrounds, the panelists' backgrounds, Jesse's, Linda's, and Gift's backgrounds. Maybe let's start with Jesse. If you would like to give an introduction, a 30-second, who you are, basically.
Okay, my name is Jesse Alex Omenazu. I'm a Nigerian. I have so much passion for aviation. I studied, I did a short training on flight operations. I'm a flight dispatcher. I've always wanted to be a pilot, but I had some issues with getting into flight school, and so I had to do something else. With my time, I went for a short diploma course again on transport and logistics management. And presently, I'm on my flight training program now in Jordan, Amman. I'm currently based in Amman, and I think that's it for now.
Okay, I'm going to go next. My name is Linda. I live in Johannesburg, South Africa. I am an aeronautical engineer by profession, but I'm currently studying more about health technology as I'm doing my internship at Philips in the customer support department, which also supports an engineering and technical department. Apart from work, I also volunteer for Girls Flight Program in Africa Foundation, which is a STEM-based NPO that aims to encourage young girls to take up careers in science, technology, and engineering.
In the meantime, maybe Jesse, Alex, you can share with us your experience so far on how has it been for you? Enjoying it? What's the most difficult part? What surprised you maybe on the training you are going through at the moment?
Yeah, actually, I've had this pilot training in mind for over 10 years now. I've always wanted to be a pilot since I was a kid. I tried 3 times, but here in Jordan, I was successfully admitted here in Jordan, and the training is going fine. I just finished my ground school classes. I'm about to write my civil aviation regulation exams, which would cover up about 15 courses. It's actually an EASA-based training, but we are not getting an EASA license, just an EASA-based training. Difficulties. There are no difficulties because it's something I've always wanted to do. So that drive is enough. When it's time to study overnight, you remember what you want to do, and you have to just wake up and go ahead with your studies. Yeah, it's fine. The school exams are pretty much okay. Fair enough. The people in Jordan are quite nice. They're not that conservative. My instructors are wonderful. All my instructors are actually retired Air Force officers, ground officers. Most of them logistics pilots, and I think engineers. So the ground training is intense. From the background of the lots of experience they have gathered over the years in the military setting. So That's all. It's
I can
actually a nice
imagine.
experience here, actually.
Yeah, thanks a lot for sharing that experience with us. Looks like we have Refilwe back with us. So can you hear us loud and clear, Refilwe?
Okay, thanks, Yura, and apologies for everyone. You know, it's in Africa. Sometimes technology can get, you know, the better of us. My name is Refilwe. I'm the co-host of this session, and I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. I'm sure everyone has introduced themselves. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, just a bit of myself. I've been in the aviation industry for the last 20 years under different roles. Cabin crew to flying helicopters for the police to a brief stunt as a co-pilot for a regional airlines in South Africa. I currently sit on various aviation board, but I spend most of my time volunteering for a foundation that I started called Girls Fly Program in Africa, which is a STEM and innovative program to shape, empower, enable, and support the next generation of makers and problem solvers in aviation and space industry in Africa. I'm sure Arpad has touched on a little bit on why the session is very important, but I'll just go back a little bit as well and just give a little bit of the context as to why we are discussing the next generation. So as we all know, Africa has one of the youngest population in the world. Today, the average age is 19 years old, and it's getting younger. So this can present both an opportunity and a unique challenge, because even though our youth have the potential to transform Africa, if we neglect it, they can worsen the poverty and inequality. So a new challenge for us now and the youth will be the economic shock caused by the impact of COVID-19. According to the International Labour Organization, the pandemic could claim up to 24.7 million jobs, with aviation one of the industries the worst hit. So the question now that we need to answer today, is aviation still the right choice? So I'm sure Arpad has already started asking the questions and going through the different themes. So I'm gonna go back to Arpad to continue.
Thank you, Refilwe, and apologies for the technical glitch that happened just now. Indeed, I mean, the next few years, in fact, will be very challenging, no matter which part of the aviation supply chain you find yourself. And most of the traditional employers, the airlines, the airports, will not be the ones hiring, but you will need to be quite agile and quite adaptable in terms of where you work and where you look for work. So it would be really good to just have an understanding of what the panelists are seeing as the main challenges at the moment, and how they are responding to these very uncertain times, basically. Maybe let's start with Jesse.
Jesse, okay. Okay. Talking about the challenges we're facing right now, as we all know, the routes challenge we're facing is loss of money. If you go down to the routes, traffic dropped, money dropped, loss of jobs, and then now loss of opportunities for those trying to come in, those in training like me. You know, so the only way to correct this abnormality is just to adapt. Number one step is to adapt first. So I believe that aside the challenges before the COVID-19 struck, there has been already there has been a list of challenges we were already facing in Africa. For instance, in Africa, we had an issue. We had issues of so much pilots and engineers and dispatchers and cabin crews without jobs. Like recently, from the statistics from the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority only, Nigeria, we have about 7,715 registered pilots, licensed pilots, but there are only about 2,126 that are current. Flight dispatchers, there are about 962 of them, and just about 673 are current. So you can see the difference. It's a problem already. This problem has already been before the COVID-19 crisis. So now I think it has expanded. It has gone out of proportion probably. But yep. the right approach should be adaptation. Just adapt, innovate, be creative. and you'll get past it. I believe that's just the way to respond to the crisis for now.
Yeah. Linda, how do you see the situation? What are the main challenges facing you and facing people within your respective geography?
So talking from the engineering side, I think the main problems we're experiencing, especially in aviation, is just the lack of jobs and also just uncertainty of being in aviation. So if I talk about my experience from the time that I graduated from varsity, there was a lot of challenges, so and limited jobs. So I had to be active in the way that I was, and very open-minded in how I approached it. So I started applying in other streams of engineering, and that's why right now I'm in health technology, which at the current times is sort of like a blessing in disguise, because health technology is what is needed during these COVID and difficult times. But I think for any young person or young graduate trying to figure out their life, be very open-minded about what you take on, but try stay in a field where your skills will still be viable, and also in a field where your skills will be developed. Yeah, and also, yeah, that's all I have to say.
No, that's very helpful. What would you say, Jesse? I mean, especially when it comes to pilots listening, really, I mean, the upfront cost of training and really just to get your license is huge. And there are a lot of people who just finished the training and basically they're standing there without any jobs. What can they do in the meantime while the industry picks up? That basically we're talking about years rather than months, really. What would be your suggestion? How are you spending the time that is all of a sudden available to you?
Okay, like my earlier point, I mentioned adaptation, then being innovative. Then I would just like to chip in and say this: for every pilot trainee right now, or cabin crew trainee, anyone, flight dispatcher, it's all about having a clear vision of what you want first. I want to be. I hear people say I want to be a pilot. I want to have my breakfast in Hong Kong, have my lunch in France, and all that stuff. Yeah, it's good, but then you should have a clear. You should have a clear approach to what you want. For instance, let's look at mental transformation. For instance, during my time during this lockdown, I found out I was able to dive into some other extracurricular activities. I play the keyboard. I'm a keyboardist in church. So that aside, I also found out I got a little bit of interest in how will I put it? Aviation management, not really aviation management, tourism and travels. The school offered a course here. It's about a little bit, you have to pay for it. So I was able to okay, let me do this while I wait. You understand? So I believe taking a bit of a detour, not really fully, would help you go through this season. I would give an example. When I lost my when I was withdrawn from class back at the Nigerian College of Aviation Technologies area, I was really down. I didn't know what to do. But suddenly I just started going to the school library. I noticed a lot of books on management. Then I was introduced to FAA safety courses. There's something FAA safety courses. I did about 15 courses all through that period, and I suddenly got interest in aviation management per se. So I applied for transport and logistics management, just a diploma, while I was still waiting and hoping for the school fees and the whole issue to come. So it still boils down to what you can do outside waiting. Right now, the finance is terrible. Actually, it's like a stopped tap. The tap has stopped rushing. So, what can you do aside just waiting? You understand? To build capacity, to develop your mind, and also have extra portfolios. I've always wanted to be a pilot, but not just a pilot, but a pilot that could offer innovative ideas to the airline I work for. Understand? In management, in marketing, in route development, in any aspect I could find, you understand? So just being a pilot, for instance, is not okay now. As it is right now, just being a pilot is not just okay. Pilots are being fired. Emirates fired over 600 pilots. So what are you going to do about that? It's not about the pilot now. Yes, you have the intellectual knowledge of being a pilot and the rest, but you have to also look at something else you can add to it, you understand, to make you stand out. Because every company looks out for someone who stands out actually. So having something else to do by the side isn't a bad idea, you know.
No, that's very important. Is there anything that you would add to that, Refilwe, considering your background and what you've been doing and what you are doing at the moment?
Definitely, Arpad. You know, the aviation industry has faced many crises before, and they recovered. But this time, the recovery is going to be in a different form. So even before COVID-19, the industry was radically transformed by innovation, automation, AI, you know, among other, you know, technologies. We've seen drones taking the sky. We've seen, you know, some of the exciting technology being adopted in many countries. So to the youngsters that are at home and they've invested so much in the industry, yes, the aviation is still the right choice, but it's going to come in a slightly different form. So they need to both upskill and reskill to stay in the game. Jesse mentioned few things before as well, that just, for example, being a pilot, it might not be enough anymore. So if I can give you, you know, my own personal examples as well, I have reskilled myself throughout my career. For example, while I was a pilot for 20 years, I did my postgrad, I did my MBA, and through volunteering in different organizations, I was able to apply the learnings of, you know, those extra degrees or, you know, extra learnings that I've done. I've gone into the, you know, technology. I've worked for tech companies, and that has given me a little bit of, you know, agility in terms of, you know, how I can move within the industry. I might not fly today, but I can still be able to, you know, to contribute in the industry, whether it's in the tech field, whether it's in the human capital investment field, whether it's through my foundation. But I'm only able to do that because I have continuously invested in other learning and in other, you know, other platform of upskilling and reskilling.
Those are really good points. I believe Gift is there as well. Would be really good to understand how he has been dealing with the crisis, and he's a really good example of someone who essentially reinvented himself and went into something slightly different. If he's there, otherwise. Otherwise, it would be good to hear from Linda as well, because you are working in a different sort of field as well, and not what you've studied, basically, which is, of course, a very difficult decision to make.
Yeah. So as
just a little point from my side. Before you go on, apologies for Gift. He's having another technical difficulties. Hopefully, we'll be back again soon. And after Linda will answer the question, maybe we can reflect on the questions from the chat. Where, for example, Derek is asking, how can those who are currently in training prepare for the new realities? So maybe there is also something what we can talk about. And as there is a 15-minute break after this session, and we had a little bit of delay due to technical challenges, we can go at least 10 minutes extra. So feel free to use those extra 10 minutes in the discussion. Sorry for interrupting, Linda. The mic is yours.
Thank you. As I mentioned before, I think we need to be very open-minded, but also you need to be current with the technologies that will be taking place in the future. So an example I like using is what's happening in Singapore with the Changi airport, where everything is artificial intelligence from the time you check in till the time you board the flight. So, but as much as now you won't be dealing with people, you still need programmers, software developers who will be building these systems. So that's one field you can be looking into practicing or developing your coding skills. And yeah, so a lot of research is needed, a lot of upskilling and just developing your skills is needed, but your skills need to be in line with the demand that is needed in the future. That's what you need to ensure so that you're still relevant.
It's just important to see where the industry is heading, because there will be a lot of innovation coming out of all this, basically technological innovation, the touchless passenger experience, both at airports and on board the aircraft. There will be a lot of opportunity for engineers to get involved on the design side of things, basically in terms of cabin design, in terms of airport design. So I think it will be, you just need to spot those opportunities. And I think it's going to be the smaller sort of businesses that will be driving the innovation, although the big ones as well. But I think in terms of where you can really get jobs, I think it's going to be sort of the more nimble, agile organizations, basically. Gift is back, and would be really good to hear from him what he's doing and how he pivoted his career over the past few months and years.
Thank you very much, Arpad. Good afternoon and morning to everybody, depending on where you are. So yeah, my name is Kgadima, and I've been involved 12 years in aviation. Started off being a glider pilot, and on my way to becoming a commercial pilot, that's when I realized myself, when doing self-introspection, seeing that the world is changing and where the global aviation is headed to. That's when I decided to pivot and to get involved in the drone industry. And that was a decision I made about 5 years ago. So I've been involved in the drone industry, which led to me now founding my own company, which I'm a director of today. So it was just a matter of, seeing what's going on a global scale, because aviation does not necessarily happen in one specific country, but we are in a global community, and therefore we must always be sure to know what's happening on a global competitive scale. So I think, yeah, that's what allowed me to be able to pivot and to forecast and to see where the aviation is going. Hence, finding myself in the drone sector, which is booming today. I mean, as we've seen with the pandemic, the drones are a big topic. They're a point of hot contention of late. And it's just having done research back then and having made the decisions to refocus my efforts in the drone industry.
And having your own business, Gift, my question is, now that you've experienced what it is to be an entrepreneur and basically run your own show, so to say, would you consider going back to full-time employment, working for a bigger organization? Would that be an option for you, or it's or you enjoy what you're doing at the moment so much that you would not consider that?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I have to go for the latter because I really enjoy what I do. I really enjoy being in the startup space. I really enjoy things changing quickly. But more importantly, I feel that I've got a responsibility as an African, to create some of the great industries that are going to come out of Africa. We find so many people who want to repatriate and go work for the likes of Boeing, for the likes of Airbus, for all the big aerospace companies. And I think it's my dream and my vision to actually create African companies that are going to be corporate, multinational corporate companies. And yeah, to answer your question in short, I don't see myself going back into formal employment. But I believe that what we're doing within our company is going to be also something that's great and a great story to come out of Africa. I think you're on mute.
Great, Gift. Thank you. We have a question from Derek, which is a really good one. I think we should address that, going back to the cockpit, Jesse and Refilwe, and also Linda. How can those who are currently training prepare for the new realities? Is it good to just go and push through with it, spend the money, or basically just stop for now and then get back to it once you have some more visibility as to what's going to happen, basically?
Arpad, can I answer that?
Yes, of course, Refilwe, if you would like to go.
I think for the youngsters that have started training today, that aim to join. Okay, let me just go back. I was listening to an earlier session where they were talking about that as much as they airline industry has, sort of gone down. The cargo side has gone up. And there's some other aspect of the industry, the charter side, the emergency side, relief side. So depending on what your career trajectory is, for example, if you're starting to train today, chances are you'll be eligible to go into the airlines in about 5 years' time, not tomorrow. So the worst that you can do is quit now and restart in 5 years' time, because you'll be left behind. But so my advice would be for them to actually continue. However, the airline, the pilot license on its own will not be good enough anymore in 5 years' time. Companies are going to be looking for innovative and agile employees that can be utilized in a whole lot of aspects of, of the industry. So when you are busy doing that license, make sure that you start taking other courses, read, open your mind, know what's happening in the industry, get into the technology of the industry. What is it that you can do in addition to flying that can add value to that company? Because airlines have to go, as much as they're cutting down, today, 5 years time, it won't be the same thing, but they're going to be looking for a different kind of a person to be working for that airline.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's sort of answered the question.
That does. And I don't know if Jesse has anything to add to that. And it would be really good to see what you are doing about it, because you mentioned reading, you've mentioned sort of passive things, what you can do, but what are the sort of tangible, active things that you can really just maybe try to apply that knowledge that you gain in the meantime, Jesse?
Okay. Just like what Refilwe said, being valuable is key. Being valuable is very important. There are two sides to value: the virtue and the intellect. Let's give a break to the virtue part of it. The intellect part of it, it's very important we kind of develop. Just like we have been ringing the bell every now and then. So now I noticed something for the past 4 years. Pilot trainings have gone beyond CPL. I don't know if you've observed. Most airlines now require you have a line. You have to finish your type rating. You have to have some line hours. You understand? Most airlines, international airlines, I observed that, and so what I planned doing was to basically finish my flight training, do a little bit of management at the side, and go for my line training. Because if you just have a CPL only, my dear, you could just be a flight dispatcher. Actually, I have a friend who has a CPL. He's working as a flight dispatcher. So I still go with what you Refilwe has said. What's like the question? How can those who are currently in training prepare for the new realities? You have to just figure out what is going on in the industry. Right now, the industry is in its transition stage. You understand? The COVID-19 has brought in new realities that we have never ever thought about. So now you have to look at what will the industry be in the next 5 years? What is expected to happen, and what will the industry need in the next 5 years? And then you work towards that. Basically, I feel as a pilot, very importantly, if you can have a management portfolio by the side, it will be very, 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 very profitable. Very profitable. Thank you.
No, so that's very. Linda, would you like to add something on the engineering side of things to this?
I think on the engineering side, it will just reiterate what I've already said. On the engineering side, it's just about building your skills to make them more viable to what the demand is. So if you look at some of the engineering technologies that are coming up in the manufacturing side, you're looking at 3D printing, you're looking at VR being used, you're looking at artificial intelligence, we're looking at some of the processes which make the MRO easier. So in terms of inspections, in terms of when you're trying to see when you inspection the aircraft as it is, we're trying to implement better processes and more automated processes like in sensors and stuff. So I think it's just important to do research and make sure your skills are aligned with what the market currently needs. Yeah.
That's great. The other topic that we wanted to touch upon is the future. What would be, or what will be, an attractive aviation organization for people to work in? Obviously, the industry is going through a lot of turbulence, and a lot of organizations are making cuts. So at the moment, it's they're developing a sort of reputation of, do I really want to work there? Is it really a safe and secure sort of place for me to be? Would be really good to hear from you, from all of you, really. What are you looking for from your next employer? Basically, is it the opportunity to grow, learning and development? Is it diversity? Is it what is it that will make you really consider an organization in this industry, wherever you may be? Maybe let's start with Jesse.
Okay. 2 years ago, in 2017, when I met with John at the Aviators Africa launch, I spoke with Diko Wanchukwu and some other persons about an idea of cargo. While working for Medview Airlines as a flight operations officer, I noticed there was so much cargo. There was so much potential in cargo transportation in Nigeria. So I noticed the link between what's it called, the connecting factor between a pilot who is current and basically how will I put it now? Okay, let's look at it this way. I noticed that for you to actually build your what's it called again? Oh my God! To build capacity, especially in cargo in the cargo industry, you have to actually go general aviation wise. So I offered an idea of why not airports, the big airlines, for instance, meet with some people who could offer this, the Cessna 208 and the rest for cargo operations while attached to the airlines. So now my point basically is that I would like to work with an airline who is open, who is willing to buy into ideas, new ideas. When I offered the idea to Medview Airlines, it was kind of not really listening to. So there are a lot of opportunities that airlines could look at outside just the normal flight operations. So if an airline is open-minded, like it's willing to listen, I think that would be a very good airline to work with. I don't know if you get my point. Miss the point there.
Very good points. Basically, being open to innovation, suggestions, things like that. What would be your take on that, Refilwe? How do you see an attractive organization, aviation organization of the future?
Arpad, I'm just going to go, a little bit back as well and reiterate that companies must continue to engage the younger generation. So what we've seen in the past few weeks, with the challenges of COVID-19, we've really been receiving a lot of negative messages from companies. And I think in this regard, communication is the key. And I think hence that's why so many youngsters are very nervous about the industry, what is going to happen because of that negative messaging that's been out there. Everybody knows that we are going through, one of the major pandemic. But as I've said before, aviation is, faced a lot of challenges, epidemics, economic recessions, and safety incident, but it has always recovered. So I think the first thing that needs to be done, companies need to start giving out positive messages as well, in terms of, even though we're going through this phase, we have survived before. And this is the kind of people that we're going to be needing in the future to be part of this organization. In that sense, they start engaging these youngsters, and because these youngsters are the key, as much as we can sit and discuss about, financial implication, whatever, but in 5 years time, 10 years time, these youngsters that are sitting at home are the ones that are going to be working in those companies. So I think that's the first thing that needs to be done. The second thing is diversity and inclusion. You know, it's, I mean, a lot of other industries, there is a lot of research that has been done that more diverse companies as well, they tend to produce more, you know, much more better results. And again, this is the time where aviation need a lot of innovation, need a lot of different ideas. So we have to open up the industry to, you know, those diverse ideas. And that's the only way that we're going to survive, going forward, to make sure that we have those, diverse views. And really, Jesse touched on something, and you, Arpad, as well, being very, very open. You know, traditionally, aviation is a very traditional environment, and we are, it's been there's traditions that have gone on for years, but unfortunately, it is changing, it is transforming, technology is coming, and some of the most tech-savvy people are the youngsters. So they need to be included in these conversations, starting from today, not in 10 years' time.
Great insights, Refilwe. Linda, what does the organization look like where you would like to work in the aviation industry? What is important for you specifically?
I mean, ideally it's SpaceX and NASA, but in the African context, I think we need to be investing in research development, but more importantly, commercializing of these ideas. So what you find is that there's a lot of research about future technologies that's taking place in universities and some research companies as well. But what you find is that the commercializing of these is very hard because the funding, not enough, just enough money to make the research happen. So I think I would like to work for a company that invests in constantly innovative, and I think that's how we will get past this phase of COVID, especially in the African context. Is that we need to be thinking of new ideas and new ways to implement how we will get over these challenges. And by that we need, like Ref said, we need young people, we need people with new ideas, and most importantly, the implementation of these ideas. And another point is, I would like to work for a company that is very diverse, because I think if we're trying to solve issues in Africa, it's better if the people who live through it, they understand it, so they probably will have the solution to it. Yeah.
No, thank you, Linda. And being an employer, having your own company, what is your vision for it? What sort of culture would you like to create there, or working on there?
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot for that. Such a great question. And I'll answer just for myself, being a millennial, and seeing that a lot of the people that are employable right now are looking for opportunities to be employed are millennials. And millennials want a strong sense of vision. So that's what we try to create at my company, is to give a strong sense of vision about bringing a greater future for Africa. And I think that's the key ingredient that every company must also look into having. It's just a strong sense of vision. And that vision is, of course, going to align with a certain individual. And that's how you get millennials to want to work with great institutions. So yeah, just in short, I'll just leave it at that. And I'll say a great sense of vision is what people are attracted to a lot.
Thank you. I think it resonates with a lot of people, basically, just to have an environment where you can be yourself, which is diverse, basically, where you can learn, grow. I think that's those are some of the most important things, especially for the millennial or the Gen Z. I think that's the generation that we are talking about, really, the even younger ones, basically the 18-year-olds, 17-year-olds, who are basically seeing an industry that is struggling at the moment, and they're now in the middle of their decision-making time, and they just need to see that there is a future for this, and it really makes sense investing in all of this. Don't know if Refilwe, would you like to add anything to that? I think we've covered a lot of ground here. Now is a good opportunity to just say anything that we haven't, or what you would like to still add to this, to the conversation.
I think, I just want to emphasize again that we've, as the industry, we've managed to overcome a lot of challenges in the past. And my advice to the younger generation, upskill. I'm going to emphasize that again. Reskill and upskill. We've on one of our Twitter page, we've posted a nice article that was written by Arpad, and you can download that article and just go and check what is it that we mean when we say reskill and upskill. Embrace technology, diversify your skill. The second thing, networks. Build networks, because that's where you're going to get your next opportunities, and be open to challenges. Trust me, I'm as much passionate, especially the pilot, I'm as much passionate about flying as everybody else. When I see that aircraft, that's where I want to be. But unfortunately, we're facing, few challenges. You need to be very much open-minded to a lot of opportunities. Yesterday, I was telling the team that just being open-minded. I spent a bit of time in the US working for LinkedIn, different career to what I had initially envisioned, in a tech company, and that was an eye-opener. And so when you open up your mind, things that you never expect to happen might just happen. And trust me, I came back and aircraft are still there. So, it's just, I know it's hard, but, open your mind to new possibilities.
And then really, as I'm just looking at what Derek said in the comments, it's inspiring. Really, the next generation will be very important because they're seeing a struggling industry, and I think it will take a lot to really just get them believe that there is a bright future for this. So I think that's the job of all of us, really, to make them realize that the future is bright, although the immediate sort of few years might not be as good as we anticipate. So with that, I would like to thank everyone. Uri just joined the session as well. If in case he would like to say anything, of course, more than welcome to. So thank you again, everyone, for the insights and the participation.
Are there any questions on the chat, Arpad? I don't have the chat on my.
1 second, let me have a look, because I think Derek asked if it was a question to you, Refilwe. Do you think we are doing enough to inspire and bring through the next generation? Basically, if not, what more can we do, and which stakeholders should be invited to the conversation, basically, and to the table, basically? What role would that be? I think, what role can these stakeholders be playing, basically, now?
Arpad, just to answer the question, I don't think we're doing enough to inspire the next generation. The youngsters that I've engaged with in the past 2 weeks are not really inspired to be in the aviation industry. And I think that goes back to the messaging of, the organizations and the companies. Every time you go online, people are being, retrenched. As much as we understand that has to happen, but the messaging of the company, I think that's very important as well. Because I think as much as they want to work for those companies, they want to know that they will be valued as, the future generation. So in terms of what stakeholders, it's a multi-stakeholder opportunity here. You're looking at foundations such as ours as well. We need to get that positive message out. Government entities need to get that positive message out. Airlines, manufacturers, and I mean, we understand that they're going through a lot in terms of, their internal structures. But if they want to exist in the next 5 years and attract the best in the industry, they need to relay that positive message. Because as a youngster, and when I look at what is happening and the messaging that is coming out, I would opt for another, career, maybe health side, maybe a doctor, because those are valued, because when I look at the airline industry, when I look at the manufacturing industry, you know, there's not a lot of good stories to tell, but there are good stories within the bigger spectrum of the aviation industry. The drone industry is really picking up. Let's get that message out. You know, innovation, big data, AI. You know, they as much as those organizations need to get the message out that these are the skills that we're gonna be needing in the future. I gave the statistics earlier on that you know, today the average age is 19 years old. I think in about 5-10 years time, more than 65% of the population will be falling under the youth and the youngsters. So if we are not doing as much to get them on board, to even come up with the solutions that we're facing now, we're going to be lost as a continent. So yeah, the answer in short, no, we're not doing enough.
No, that's anything else from Jesse, Linda, Gift to add to that? What more can the industry, and would be really appreciated basically from your perspective as well. Maybe Linda, if you would like to add anything to this.
Yeah, I'd just like to say for young graduates or people still in school who are finding it really difficult to be inspired right now, I think you just need to keep active. So after I finished my studies, there was a period of time where I was just applying for jobs. But at the same time, I kept active. So I started working or volunteering for GFPA. And what you find is that you develop your skills even in that. You learn more about the aviation field. You learn more teaching young kids about robotics and coding. So you're still exercising your skills. And that experience has been so beneficial that this year I've been chosen also to be in the UN. So it gives you exposure not only to just what you're dealing with, but other like socio-economic problems and how to solve them. So just keep active, because even if it's hard in this 5 years, you need to show what is it that I was doing in this 5 years? How was I building? How was I building my skills as well? So that would be the advice that I would give to young people right now.
Great, thank you. And Jesse, you've mentioned earlier that basically just being a pilot, of course, will not be enough. Is there anything else that you would like to get out as a message, basically, for the next generation, both for individuals and or organizations, basically?
Well, I would just advise for the next generation to, number one, be valuable, be very, very valuable. Have that as a focus. Be valuable. No airline will keep someone who isn't valuable, who isn't resourceful. So be valuable. Whether you're a flight dispatcher, be valuable. Grow your knowledge. Build your knowledge. Build capacity. Gather in more. It doesn't matter if you can do 2 degrees. You're not going to die. So just keep building capacity. One day you might not actually work as a pilot. Maybe work as a marketing officer in the same airline, you know. So it doesn't really have to be. You don't have to lay your eggs in one basket. You don't have to narrow down or tunnel down your plans. You could spread it around within the industry. The aviation industry is wide, it's broad. So there are a lot of things you could pick. You could pick and add. Like, for instance, I myself, I'm a flight dispatcher. I'm training as a pilot. I really want to do aviation management. I really want to go into aviation management. And I believe, and I know there's still more to do. There's still more to learn. There's still more to build on. You understand? So basically, it's just to be valuable, intellectually and virtue-wise. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Gift, what is your company doing about encouraging and really just pushing the next generation basically towards the industry?
Sure. I think I'd just also maybe like to touch on some of what the panelists reiterated is about getting involved. You know, even though sometimes you might get involved in organizations that aren't necessarily going to pay you, get involved, because there you're going to learn so much. And even besides learning, you open up your network pool, because at the end of the day, your network is your network. So get involved. And what we're trying to do is, of course, we're trying to build a huge corporation, because small startups and small and micro medium entities are the backbones of economies. And therefore, we're trying to play a role to make sure that we can employ as many people as possible, because big corporates don't expand as much anymore. They are shedding jobs, actually. And therefore, I think it's a responsibility of entrepreneurs and people who don't mind taking risks, to start companies, so that these companies can employ a lot of the youth, because it is going to be a small micro entities that are going to be employing and essentially being the backbone of the economy. So to the young ones out there, if you still have time on your side, take the risk. You're still not 30, you don't have any children or anything like that. Take the risk, start a company. And if you fall, you pick yourself up and you learn. And from your failure, it's just one method of not doing what you did. So don't take failure as pit stop or the end, but rather as a learning lesson. So yeah, I would just like to reiterate that: take the risk and learn as much as possible. Get involved, get stuck in, and open up the network.
No, some really good advice there, Gift, and I would agree with that. Basically, just take the risk while you can, between 17 and 25, basically, without when you make kind of responsibilities, basically, and even if it doesn't work out, you can always join an organization, and in your interview, you can talk about your experiences that you gained. Trying a venture on your own. I think it's much more likely that you are going to do this earlier in your career than later, when you have more to lose effectively. I think it's a very, very good point, and probably this crisis has created the best time ever for people to really just go out and really see what they can do, basically. I think it's a really good time to, or a really good way to bridge the gap, basically, between two employments, if you don't have something to go for immediately. I think, Linda, would you like to add anything to that?
No, I'd just like to give a shout out to my friends and family who watched.
Yeah. No, fantastic. I think, Refilwe, if you would like to add anything, or if you think that we haven't covered something, please say it now. But I think we covered most of the questions as well in the chat, I think. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think we've covered everything. I'll personally be online for the rest of the day, so I'll be available on private chat. Or you can contact my foundation as well to find out about what we do to inspire the next generation. And yeah, thank you for joining us for the session.
Thank you, everyone. And I will make my welcome to connect with me. If you have any questions, please let me know, and hopefully I will be able to help you or guide you. Thank you for everyone. Really, it was really enjoyable.